Test, test, 1, 2. All right, we're gonna get started with Q&A in a moment.
Stay encouraged. Nah, nah, nah. In times. Oh, yeah, yeah. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Be strong. Yeah. I don't be mad.
He's the only solution. Secret things, mysteries, they don't lead to life. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. He's the only solution. But you got to choose it, got to choose it. Enter in that straight gate, narrow way leads to life. Wide is the other way, temptation gets in the way. Soon you are led astray. He's the only solution. But you got to choose it, got to choose it. Protection, direction, or pain and vexation, or choose salvation. Thy kingdom come, thy will done. Confession, reflection brings times of refreshing. Confession, reflection brings times of refreshing. He's the only solution. But you got to choose him, got to choose him. Protection, direction, or pain and vexation, or choose salvation. You got to choose him. He's the only solution. So why don't you choose him? He's the only solution. Secret things, mysteries, they don't lead to life. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. He's the only solution. But you got to choose it, got to choose it. Enter in that straight gate, narrow way leads to life. Wide is the other way. Temptation gets in the way. Soon you are led astray. He's the only solution. But you got to choose it, got to choose it. Protection, direction, or pain and vexation, or choose salvation. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Confession, reflection brings times of refreshing. Confession, reflection brings times of refreshing. He's the only solution. But you got to choose him, got to choose him. Protection, direction, or pain and vexation, or choose salvation. You got to choose him. A humble heart is how it starts. Pride comes before the fall. When timbers stir, we say idle words. A soft turn turns away wrath. Stop in the name of love. Walk in the way of love. Jesus himself is love. He's the only solution. You got to choose him, got to choose him. You got to choose him. Protection, direction, or pain and vexation, or choose salvation.
Testing 1, 2. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started with Q&A. We're gonna get started with Q&A. I'm gonna ask the brothers to uncover your heads and sisters cover your heads. We're gonna stand and face Jerusalem and open up with a prayer. Our Father which art in heaven,
Our Father which art in heaven,
hallowed be thy name.
hallowed be thy name.
Thy kingdom come,
Thy kingdom come,
thy will be done in earth
thy will be done in earth
as it is in heaven.
as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread,
Give us this day our daily bread,
and forgive us our debts
and forgive us our debts,
as we forgive our debtors.
as we forgive our debtors.
And lead us not into temptation,
Lead us not into temptation,
but deliver us from evil.
but deliver us from evil.
For thine is the kingdom,
Thine is the kingdom,
and the power,
and the power,
and the glory forever.
and the glory forever.
In Jesus' mighty name we pray.
In Jesus' mighty name we pray.
Amen. All right. We're going to go ahead and open up the floor for Q&A. Who's got the first question? All right, we got a question online. We're going to go ahead and take the question online. The question is, peace, having free will, how does one maintain the fear of God from day to day? Is this is a different, these are two different questions, right?
Yeah, okay.
All right, we'll deal with the first one. How do we maintain the fear of God from day to day, though we have free will? Well, yeah. Having free will, how does one maintain the fear of God from day to day? Okay, let's go to Revelation 20. Revelation 20. Verse 15. Revelation 20 and verse 15. Okay, go ahead.
And whosoever was not found written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire.
Okay, so whoever the Lord does not have their name written in the book of life, they are destined for the lake of fire. Now, what is the lake of fire? Let's go to Mark, I believe it's chapter 8. Mark chapter 9. Mark chapter 9 and verse 'Actually, I'm sorry. Before we go to Mark chapter 9, go back to Revelation 20. There's another verse we need to read. Sorry about that. So we read Revelation 20, verse 15. Read 15 again. Go ahead.
And whosoever was not written in the book of life was cast into the lake of fire.
Okay, now what is the lake of fire? What's going to be the experience in the lake of fire? Let's skip back to verse 10. Go ahead.
And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone.
Okay, so whoever is not found in the book of life is going to be cast wherever the devil is cast. Notice the devil's not, like the bouncer letting people in or out or something like that. Or
right.
He's not the one throwing people in the lake of fire. Notice that.
That's right.
He himself was cast in the lake of fire. Keep going.
Where the beast and the false prophets are.
And what are they going to be doing? They're going to be having some more Grammy Awards. They're going to be doing some more red carpets, some movie premieres. Let's see what they're doing. Go ahead.
And shall be tormented day and night forever and ever.
Okay, so we talking straight torture forever, right? So if that doesn't start the fear train, if that doesn't help the fear train leave the station, I don't know what does. Because the same God that alerted us that these governments are going to come together as a one world government, the same God that alerted us about the mark of the beast, the same God that gave us the 10 Commandments, but said that the world is going to run rapidly away from these commandments, and all those things have come to pass, right? Even the same God that has prophesied about the kingdoms and specific kings, and that the Gentiles would run the world at this time, and they do, so forth and so on. That same God said that the way this all ends is that those who don't do what he say is going to be tormented forever, right? So if that, like I said, if that does not instill fear, then nothing will. Mark chapter 9. Now we go to Mark chapter 9. Test 1, 2. Hey, these sound a little hot in here, or are they okay? Yeah, can you turn them down? Mark chapter 9. No, not that. The mics are hot. Mark 9, verse 42. 9 and 42, go ahead.
And whosoever shall offend one of these little ones that believe in me, it is better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and he were cast into the sea.
Okay, now, why would that be better for you than what God has planned for you, for his enemies? Why would this be better for his enemies? Because ultimately, if someone ties a millstone around your neck and throws you in the sea, that will ultimately end. It'll be sad. There'll be some pain, but that's going to ultimately end. What God got planned for his enemies does not end. Verse 43, go ahead.
And if thy hand offend thee, cut it off. It is better for thee to enter into life maimed than having 2 hands to go into hell, into the fire that never shall be quenched, where their worm dieth not, and the fire is not quenched. And if thy foot offend thee, cut it off. It is better for thee to enter halt into life than having 2 feet to be cast into hell, into the fire that never shall be quenched, where their worm dieth not, and the fire is not quenched.
Okay, so what this is telling us is, again, people think it's a game until it's not. People think it's all good until it isn't, right? But when anyone that finds himself in this situation is not going to be able to get out of it. There's no attorney to call. There's no case to plead. You're not even sitting on death row waiting. This is just straight torment, no chasers. Matter of fact, let's go look at that. Revelation 13? No, it's Revelation 14. Revelation 14. So the fear of the Lord comes from the fact that the Lord has promised all of these things for his enemies. That's fact number 1. The Bible says the Lord has promised all these things for his enemies. And fact number 2, there's nobody that can, basically the Bible explained that there's no one that can deliver you out of the Lord's hands. So that's what the Bible's saying that we should be that we should be afraid of. Now, the fact that the Bible has been right at every turn about so many things is also makes all of that other stuff so much more real and scary. Revelation 14, verse 9. 14 and 9, go ahead.
And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb.
Right.
And
So that's they're gonna be watching. They're gonna be watching while you go through this. Again, this is like I said, people think it's a game till it's not. And this is so close. The problem is here. It's too many places we can go. This is so close because when you die, what you think the next thing you're going to deal with is? Right? So we could be here chilling. We here having a Sabbath, planning for Passover, so forth and so on. Next thing you know, you could lose your life in a moment. Once you lose your life, the next thing you see is the Lord. You're going to sleep till the time appointed and either come up in the first resurrection or come up in judgment. But either way, the next thing you see is the Lord, and you're going to literally have to deal with this. That's, man, let me tell you. That's, like I said, if that don't instill some fear, I don't know what will. Okay, Hebrews 10. We could probably end it on this. So, really, when you say having free will, that's part of the problem, right? Like, because our free will want to get us thrown in the lake of fire. So that's going to be, that compounds the problem. Hebrews 10 and 26, go ahead.
For if we sin willfully, after that we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no more sacrifice for sin, but a certain fearful looking for of judgment and fiery indignation, which shall devour the adversaries. He that despised Moses' law died without mercy under 2 or 3 witnesses. How much more sore punishment, suppose ye, shall he be thought worthy, who hath trodden under foot the Son of God, and hath counted the blood of the covenant wherewith he was sanctified an unholy thing, and hath done despite unto the Spirit of grace. For we know him that hath said, Vengeance belongeth unto me, I will recompense, saith the Lord. And again, the Lord shall judge his people. It is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God.
Right. Why is it a fearful thing to fall in the hands of the living God? Because if the Lord is against you, who, like when people, the book say God before you, who can be against you? But the opposite is also true. If God is against you, who can be for you? So hopefully that helps with that question. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. Next question is Matthew 12 and 12. What is doing well on the Sabbath day limited to and defined as? Is attending a mortgage info... I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Is attending a mortgage info session that's offered on Saturdays only considered doing well or considered a sin? Okay, this is actually a great question. Not that I'm surprised. It's a great question. I wasn't expecting to see the mortgage part, but this is a great question. Matthew 12 and 12. Go ahead.
How much then is a man better than a sheep? Wherefore it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days. Keep going.
Yes, that's it. Okay. Wherefore, how much then is a man better than a sheep? Wherefore it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath day. So that's already showing us that there's some context here as to what he's talking about. Let's back up to verse 1. Again, this is a great question because he's going to define basically through examples, through reasonable examples, right? Because we have to pair what we're reading with reason to a certain degree, right? All of this, we got to be reasonable with all of this, right? And practical. And it's got to apply to reality. So let's start at verse 1. Go ahead.
At that time, Jesus went on the Sabbath day through the corn, and his disciples were an hungered, and began to pluck the ears of the corn and to eat. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, Behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day.
Okay, so now the scenario is the disciples are plucking ears of corn. The Pharisees are watching them and they're saying, look, they doing something, they're breaking the law. Now, the question we got to ask ourselves is, are they correct? Are the Pharisees correct in that technically what the disciples are doing is breaking the law? Well, let's keep reading. Go ahead, verse 3.
But he said unto them, Have ye not read what David did when he was an hungered, and they that were with him?
Okay, so there's our key right there. Have you not read what David did not just on a whim, not just as a matter of fact, he did this. He did this when he was hungry. So that's the linchpin, or that's really what we're basing all of what we're reading on. The fact that he was hungry, therefore something was done. And what did he do when he was hungry? Verse 4.
How he entered into the house of God and did eat the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat.
Okay, so the example the Lord is giving is showing that David is doing something unlawful. But he's doing something unlawful in the context of there being not just him saying, oh, I'm hungry. You know what? I got food over here that I can eat. But I'm not going to eat that food. I'm going to choose to eat the showbread that I'm not supposed to eat. That's not the context. The context here is that David was in a dire situation and he was hungry. So there was a need. There was a need. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. There was a need here. Keep going.
Neither for them which were with him, but only for the priests.
Uh-huh.
Or have ye not read in the law how that on the Sabbath days the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless?
Okay, so here, what he's basically showing is, because the priests had to do what? They had to keep the fire, they were doing sacrifice on the Sabbath. They had to keep the fire going. The fire couldn't go out. So they're doing things that, there's other laws for other things that seem to go against what this is saying, that what the priests are being told to do. Kind of like the priests are being told to do something, but then everybody else is being told not to do that in that instance. So it's not quite the same thing as what David did. David, basically broke a law that everybody had to uphold. Well, I guess it's the same thing, because the priest could eat the showbread, but nobody else could. So David ate the showbread and he wasn't supposed to. But the point here, the point in the first example is that there was a need. The point in the second example is God is the one that determines who can do what. Right? Because the priests are doing things that the regular people couldn't do. Right? Verse 6, go ahead.
But I say unto you that in this place is one greater than the temple.
Right, so that's what he's saying. Look, I'm the lawgiver here. I'm the one that gave these laws. Verse 7.
But if ye had known what this meaneth, I will have mercy and
Right,
not sacrifice.
so but I'm the lawgiver here. I'm the one here that even gave you that law, but you don't believe that. So that rationale and that understanding of you looking at this whole scenario from that lens doesn't apply to you because you don't believe. Right? He said, but I say unto you that in this place is one greater than the temple. But if ye had known what this meant, I will have had mercy and not sacrifice. Keep going.
Ye would not have condemned the guiltless.
And who determines who's guilty and who's not?
God.
The Lord does, the one they were talking to. Mm-hmm. Verse 8.
For the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath day.
Right, so he's saying, look, I'm the one. If I say they're okay. But they're okay not because they doing something wrong and he just letting it be okay. They're okay because there is a need in this situation. And that's what he illustrated with David. Because the Lord is not, he's not, what does the book say? By no means, here, hold up. Let's go look at that. Sorry, just a little detour. Yeah. Hold your finger here. Go to Exodus 34. Exodus 34, verse 7. Exodus 34 and 7. Go ahead.
Keeping mercies for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression of sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and upon the children's children, unto the third and to the fourth generation.
Okay, look what he said. Keeping mercy for thousands, because that's what he said right here, right? He said, but if ye had known what this meaneth, I will have mercy and not sacrifice, ye would not have condemned the guiltless, right? So he's saying the disciples are guiltless in this matter in the same manner as David was guiltless in his manner, because they were both in situations, they found themselves in situations because of outside circumstances, and there is a need there, right? A rational need. Hey, David's on the run from Saul. Saul's trying to kill him. David's sneaking around to preserve his life, and he's hungry, and there's some bread there. That's a rational situation where you can say, okay, an exception can be made in this manner. And that's what the Lord is saying, because the Lord is reasonable. People try to make God seem like he's unreasonable, right? Mainstream Christians say don't keep the law because you can't keep it all. And basically that's saying like God is unreasonable. And you can't please God, right? But notice what he says in Exodus 34:7. He said, keeping mercy for thousands and forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty. Right? So that's showing you he's not, we can go back to Matthew 12 now, he's not excusing the disciples here because, hey, they the disciples and respecting their person, they doing something wrong. He's saying this is a rational, reasonable situation where they are hungry. Now let's see what that rational, reasonable explanation is, the situation is in the disciples' case. Now let's go to Mark chapter 6, because they were walking through the cornfield on the Sabbath day and plucking the corn, which normally they would not be doing, just like normally David would not be eating the showbread. Mark 6 and verse 31. Mark 6 and 31, go ahead. 30, Mark 6 and 30, go ahead.
And the apostles gathered themselves together unto Jesus, and told him all things, both what they had done and what they had taught. And he said unto them, come ye yourselves apart into a desert place, and rest a while. For there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat.
So notice the disciples they got so much work to do. He said unto them, come ye yourselves apart into a desert place and rest a while. For there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat. So they were putting in so much work. Hey, I'm gonna come in a second to make sure you're straight. They were putting in so much work, they didn't have time to do the normal Sabbath preparation. You know, they didn't have time. They didn't even have time to eat. They were eating on the run. They didn't even have time to stop and sit down and just eat. That's why they walking through the cornfield. Look, we got to eat something. We leaving doing some work on our way to go do some work. So in that case, hey, they putting in work. So it's reasonable to think, and by the way, they're being accused by the very people, which are the Pharisees, by the very people whose work they are doing because they won't do the work. So imagine what situation the Pharisees putting themselves in by not believing, not preaching the gospel, not leading the people correctly, but then they're going to scrutinize the people who are standing in the gap doing it. They putting themselves in a horrible position. So that's the rational, reasonable reason why there would be an exception made in this case. And that's basically all this is. The Lord is making an exception because sometimes exceptions need to be made. So now, the question here is attending a mortgage info session that is offered on Saturdays only considered doing well or considered a sin? So now I'm going to reframe this question. I'm going to reframe this question to make the question be a little more, how do I say? Closer to home? Okay, we'll go with that. Is attending a mortgage info session offered by Sabbath breakers considered doing well or considered a sin? That might be a little closer to home, right? Because when you say it's offered on Saturday only, there's only one type of person that's offering something like that on the Sabbath only. That is a Sabbath breaker. Right? Whether they know about the Sabbath or not, 9 times out of 10, they might not even think about the Sabbath, but they still are habitually breaking the Sabbath. Right? So should we go and do that? Well, I think the answer to that may be made a little more obvious. We say what now? What's that? Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, let's go to that. I wasn't thinking about that one, but yeah, let's go to it. You talking about doing your pleasures on the Sabbath? Isaiah 58. Yeah, Isaiah 58. Isaiah 58. Isaiah 58, verse 13. Isaiah 58 and verse 13. Before we hit Isaiah 58, let's go to Exodus 20. And let's see if going to a mortgage info session on the Sabbath is doing well on the Sabbath or breaking the Sabbath. Because we can see already, doing well on the Sabbath, there has to be some sort of need, some sort of reasonable, rational need that's understandable. Like, for instance, you on the Sabbath and, well, let me not give no examples. Exodus 20, verse 8. Go ahead.
Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work.
Okay, so what does that include? That would include going to a mortgage info session. So you literally have 6 days to do that where it's no problem at all. Right? No problem at all. But, as he said, it's only offered on Saturdays. So, in reality, to me, that would be a red flag. That's a red flag. When you're looking to do something and what you're trying to do is only offered on Saturdays, that should be strike one. That should be a red flag for a servant of God. Like, what spirit is making it only be offered on Saturdays? Is that the Spirit of God? Is that something the Lord is leading you to? Again, all I'm saying in that regard is those are good questions, and that should be a red flag to bring those questions up. Because he says 6 days shalt thou labor. He's only he's only not talking about the Sabbath day. So whoever booked this thing picked the one day. How they pick the one day? Well, again, we're not wrestling with flesh and blood. We're wrestling with principalities, with powers, right? So anytime I'm looking to do something, if somebody say to me, yeah, it's Saturday only, that's a spiritual red flag for me. Like, I'm immediately like, okay, hold up, what's going on here? Yeah, something's up. This is a little deeper than me just going to do this, because you said you only doing it on the one day you're not supposed to. It's somebody behind you doing something. What's up? Let me pay attention now. That's what that should be. Because he says, 6 days shalt thou labor and do all that work. Verse 10.
But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt In it thou shalt not do nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates.
So now, nobody's supposed to do any work. So people putting on a mortgage info session, they all breaking the law, all of them. So us going to that mortgage info session on the Sabbath, we encouraging them to work. We paying them and putting them to work on the Sabbath. Everybody breaking the law right here. Right? And what is the need for this to happen? There is no need for this to happen. There's no rational need why this would have to happen like this. And sometimes if you pry a little and ask why it's only on Saturday, you may find out that they are protecting the day that their God told them to go to church, which is Sunday. You may find out that they saying, look, we do it on Saturdays because Sunday is reserved for us to go to church. So now let's go back to let's go to Isaiah 58. Isaiah 58, verse 13. 58 and 13, go ahead.
If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord, honorable, and shalt honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words, then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth.
Oh, so wait a minute. So if you don't break the Sabbath, he might give you a good mortgage.
True.
Because he said, I'll cause you to ride upon the high places of the earth. That's talking about being blessed by God right now. So that's what I'm saying. That's a red flag anytime. To me personally, anytime somebody say we only doing this on Saturday and they some habitual Sabbath breakers, those are red flags. Because the Lord said, if you turn your foot from doing your pleasure on this holy day and honor that day, not doing thine own ways, nor find thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words, then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth. Keep going.
And feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it.
Okay. That's good. So hopefully that answers that question. Any questions or comments on that? All right. You see the next question online? You see it? Here. Just go ahead and start that. I'll be right back.
Okay, so the next question is from Ramona. I have a question. If the feast days allows on the weekly Sabbath, are we allowed to drink wine? Yeah. Bro, you can pass me that the list back there? Yeah, but you know that list? Because I think some of the days we're going to fall on the feast days. You know that list there? Nas, come here for a second, please. I said, I have a question. If the feast days follows on the weekly Sabbath, are we allowed to drink wine?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's a high feast day, right? It's the next one, Nas. Yeah.
Keep the feast. If the feast fall on the Sabbath, we got to keep the feast.
Okay, so yeah, when I'm looking at the feast days, I'm seeing that some of them are going to fall on the weekly Sabbath, and majority of the time when we fall on the weekly Sabbath, or all the time when it falls on the weekly Sabbath, especially if it's like the Feast of Unleavened Bread, then we consider that a high Sabbath day, Sabbath day, and we continue to feast on that day as well, which includes, drinking wine or hard liquor and eating and having a good time. So there is okay, because in John, was it John also, brother, that when Christ was raised, and they called it a high feast day, because that day was a high feast day, remember?
Yeah, when he was crucified.
Yeah. Just 1 second, let me get some scriptures together. a scripture.
Did I give you mine? Oh, where's mine?
What's that?
My phone.
All right. Verse, Okay, so we'll go to Leviticus 23, verses 37. Yeah, and as I said, most of these, the 7 days always falls on a Sabbath. So we would have our regular first day, and then our 8th day, like on the Feast of Unleavened Bread, we'd have our first day and our last day, which are feast days. But because it being 7 days, and we know that within the 7 day a Sabbath will come in there, then we consider that a high Sabbath.
Correct.
Yeah. So we go to Leviticus 23, and then we can 37. So Leviticus 23, verses 37. Leviticus 23, verses 37, and it goes as follows. These are the feasts of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, to offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord, a burnt offering and a meat offering, a sacrifice and a drink offering, everything upon his day. Besides the Sabbaths of the Lord, and besides your gifts, and besides all your vows, and besides all your freewill offering, which ye give unto the Lord. Also in the 15th day of the 7th month, when ye have gathered in the fruit of the land, ye shall keep a feast unto the Lord 7 days. On the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath. And ye shall take you on the first day the boughs of goodly trees, branches and palm trees, and the boughs of thick trees, and willows of the brook. And ye shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. And ye shall keep it a feast unto the Lord 7 days in the year. It shall be a statute forever in your generations. Ye shall celebrate it in the 7th month. Continue. So that shows that within the 7 days, the Lord does require us to keep it a feast. So by that being said, if the Sabbath, which will land within the 7 day period, that we shall keep it as a high Sabbath and also celebrate as well, which includes drinking wine or hard liquor. Can we read that so that, where's that again? Strong drink. Oh, we got it. I know every year. Here it is, Deuteronomy 14. Yeah. Deuteronomy 14:26. Right there.
All right, I'll read it for you.
All right, cool.
Deuteronomy 14:26. And thou shalt bestow that money.
Start 25.
Oh, start 25, okay. Thou shalt turn it into money, and bind up the money in thine hand, and shalt go unto the place which the Lord thy God shall choose. And thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thy soul lusteth after, for oxen, or for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatsoever thy soul desireth. And thou shalt eat there before the Lord thy God, and thou shalt rejoice, thou and thine household.
That's good. So yeah, it's again so one of these. So it's usually the 3 feasts or the 2 feasts that has the 7 days. So that'll be the 7 days of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So this year it'll fall on Tuesday, April 11th, and that'll be our first day, right? No, sorry, the first day starts April the 5th, and then it concludes on April the 11th. So we would be having basically 3 high feast days, you would consider that. So it would be the first day, the Sabbath day, and then also the last day. And then we also have the Feast of Tabernacles as well, which is another 8-day period. So Yeah, once again, that one is on Friday, September 29th it starts. So that will be basically a double Sabbath. So are we coming on a, yeah, so we would be here on, actually no, so it would be two Sabbaths. We'll be doing a feast on the Sabbath.
Sundown through
Sundown
Saturday,
through.
September. Yeah, so we'll
So
be
we'll
here
be
Saturday,
here.
September 30th,
Yeah,
and then Saturday, October 7th.
Yeah.
So that's a good example.
That is,
We're going to have the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles this year on the Sabbath, September 30th, and then the 8th day on the Sabbath, October 7th. So that'd be a perfect example.
Yeah.
Because those Sabbaths will be considered high days, meaning so the feast will supersede the weekly Sabbath.
true.
So you have to keep it all Sabbath besides cooking and
Right. Right.
that day to keep your Sabbath.
So hopefully that answered your question. If there's any more questions or comments? I see some more questions there. She has another question as well too.
Okay. Hold on one second. I'm just trying to see if I can find. Let's see if I can find this one. Okay, that's good. So we'll move on to the next question. Next question. I have a neighbor that talks out loud in her apartment, and she talks. I have a neighbor that talks out loud in her apartment, and she talks to Allah. Are we allowed to ask her questions about Allah? Are we allowed to ask her questions about Allah? I'm assuming what you mean is, well, I need to understand what you mean by ask her questions. Ask her questions to what end? Ask her questions to what end? Like I said, if you could give some information on what that means. And the reason I'm asking that is because, first of all, I mean, the Lord has given us all free will, so you can do what you want to do. If you're asking, can you do certain things and be okay with God, I'm just trying to understand. I'm assuming what you mean is ask questions. Like I ask questions as a tool to illustrate certain things, not really. A lot of times, if I'm asking questions, it's not necessarily to like I already know who I believe in. So if I'm asking questions, I'm asking to get information, but this is not me inquiring so that I can do what you're doing when it comes to this, when it comes to the Word of God, or when it comes to serving God. So that's what I'm saying. I'm just trying to understand what you mean by, are we allowed to ask questions about Allah? So if you could clarify that, then we can deal with an answer. Do we have any questions here? Oh, I'm glad I asked the question. Can you read on the mic what you see? Just grab the mic and read it. Just turn it on.
Pull it out?
Yeah, just pull it out. Yeah, yep, and just turn it on, and then just read whatever you see in the comments, because I don't see that.
Let me turn it on.
Yeah, just hit channel 5 or 4, whichever one it is. Yeah, it's on. Oh, it's on right now. Go ahead. Yep.
I have another question. I have a neighbor who talks out loud in her apartment to Allah. Are we allowed to ask her to ask Allah? Are we allowed to ask her questions to ask Allah?
Oh, so here that was the other question she asked?
Yeah, it's like the same.
Ask her questions to ask Allah.
Yeah.
Woo, now that's a whole different ball game. Okay. And hopefully, this, whoever asked the question, please chime in so we can, Oh, what happened?
No, I'm saying, yeah, chime in so that.
Chime in so we can make sure we understand. But from what I'm understanding, because my next question to you is, why are you asking here? Well, we let the Bible.
No other God before me.
Hold on one second. Oh, did I not spell that?
So she says something now. You see it, Jojo? Okay, say it. Read it.
What else did she say?
She says, right, I want to know why she talks to Allah and screams at him like she, and then there's nothing else.
Okay, I think we got to know. I think we got to know. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find. Oh, here we go. Okay, we can use this as an example. All right, so when we're talking about, first of all, let's go to Exodus 20. Because when we're talking Allah, we are talking another God. So let's define, first of all, what that means. Exodus 20 and verse 1. Go ahead.
And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt.
Okay, stop right there. Did Allah bring Israel out of the land of Egypt? No. Is the answer to that question. I don't even know. I don't know if they claim that. I never heard them say that. But this is the God we talking about. We talking about the God that brought our people out of the land of Egypt. Keep going.
Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
And that's his first commandment. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. What does he mean, other gods? Let's go to 1 Corinthians. 1 Corinthians 8. 1 Corinthians 8 and 4. Go ahead.
As concerning therefore the eating of those things that are offered in sacrifice unto idols, we know that an idol is nothing in the world, and that there is none other God but one.
Keep going.
For though there be that are called gods.
Okay, so he said there's only one God. That's talking about the God of Israel.
Yeah, she just
I think the way she's asking it is like she wants to have like a debate kind of with the girl who worships Allah.
Did she put something else there?
She says, when I walk by reading the Bible, she's screaming Allah. I want to know if I am allowed to ask her about who is Allah. Like it sounds like she kind of wants to like debate.
Yeah, that's what I thought initially. Yeah, but she need to be more clear. Why am I not seeing these comments? Are they on YouTube or Facebook?
YouTube.
Okay, we'll deal with both angles. We'll deal with both angles of that question, both possibilities. Right now, we're going to deal with. Hold on. Let me see if I can see this again, because now I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing any questions now. Oh, hold on. There's something. Are we still? Okay, here we go. Okay, all right. I see more stuff. All right. I want to know why she talks a lot and screams at him. When I walk by reading the Bible, she is screaming Allah. I want to know if I'm allowed to ask her about who is Allah. No, Jesus did. Again, it's not really clear why you need to let us know why you want to ask these questions so we can address that. Because again, you see people debate all the time. You see Christians and Muslims debate, and they will ask each other questions about their God to establish consistency about doctrine, right? So I'm not sure if that's why you're asking this question. You got to be clear. Are you trying to ask questions in a way to illustrate things inconsistent about her God to her, and you're using questions as a tactic, which that's what I'm saying. A lot of times that's what I do. That's what people do. We see people doing that in the Bible. There's nothing wrong with that. Are you, what are you inquiring of? We're really not clear on the question. Anyway, let's keep going down this train of thought, and then we'll address that other part. So, verse 5, read that again. Go ahead.
For though there be that are called gods, whether in heaven or in earth, as there be gods many and lords many, but to us there is but one God, the Father, of whom are all things, and we in him, and one Lord Jesus Christ, by whom are all things, and we by him.
Okay, she said, yes, that's what I'm asking. Which one, though? Because I posed two. There's a delay. Now let's go to 1 Chronicles 10. And again, it doesn't seem like this is what you were asking. I don't think this is what you're asking, but we thought that initially, so we're just going to deal with this part anyway. Which we're not saying this is what you're asking now. We're just saying if somebody is inquiring of another God instead of the true and living God, that is a problem. First Chronicles 10, verse 13. 1 Chronicles 10 and 13, go ahead.
So Saul died for his transgression, which he committed against the Lord, even against the word of the Lord, which he kept not, and also for asking counsel of one that had a familiar spirit to inquire of it, and inquired
because ultimately, if you're dealing with anything quote unquote spiritual, that is not the God of Israel. That is not the God of Israel. You are dealing with an evil spirit. Ultimately, that's what you're dealing with. Point blank. If it's spiritual, then it's an evil spirit, because all holy spirits will point you to the God of Israel. Right? So if it's spiritual, because again, like we always say, we're not saying people aren't dealing with spirits. We're not saying what they're doing is not spiritual. We're not saying that. It may very well be spiritual. We're saying if it's not the God of Israel, then by natural extension, it's an evil spirit. Right? Read verse 13 again.
So Saul died for his transgressions, which he committed against the Lord, even against the word of the Lord, which he kept not, and also for asking counsel of one that had a familiar spirit to inquire of it, and inquired not of the Lord. Therefore he slew him, and turned the kingdom unto David the son of Jesse.
Okay, so he inquired of an evil spirit and did not inquire of God. This is a huge no-no. So again, I think what the question is more so about, can she engage this woman concerning her God by asking her questions as a way to kind of illustrate things about her God to her. I think that's more so the question. So let's go to I think Uh, uh, Acts 17. That's where we want to go. Acts 17. Acts 17, verse 16. Acts 17 and 16. 17 and 16, go ahead.
Now while Paul waited for them at Athens, his spirit was stirred in him when he saw the city wholly given to idolatry.
So now Paul goes into a city. He sees they got all kinds of gods going on in that city. He said the city was wholly given to idolatry. Right? Keep going.
Therefore dispute he in the synagogue with the Jews, and with the devout persons, and in the market daily with them that met with him.
Okay, so Paul got to work. Paul didn't leave say, oh man, these people crazy. Let me leave them alone because, we can't argue the Bible. And, what they believe, that's what they believe. What we believe, that's what he didn't do that. He rolled up his sleeves. Paul wouldn't argue with everybody he could regarding this. Therefore disputed he in the synagogue with the Jews and with the devout persons, and in the market daily with them that met with him. He went out on the street and got with whoever he could concerning this. Because again, hey, people out there that got false doctrine, that are steeped in false doctrine, they deserve to hear the truth as well. They should have an opportunity. They should have an opportunity to hear the truth. Maybe they never heard the truth. Maybe it was never presented. You know what I'm saying? He went out there and dealt with whoever he could because he had the truth, and it was his job to get out there and let people hear it. Right? So he wasn't afraid to have the tough conversations. These are clearly going to be tough conversations. So to answer your question, hey, obviously he may have asked a question or two if he's going back and forth with people concerning the idolatry that they're dealing with. You might have to ask somebody, well, show me in the Bible, where it say you can have that idol. Or show me in the Bible where God says you can do this or do that. Or, okay, so according to your God, so forth and so on. You may have to ask a question or two if that's your weapon of choice, I guess. But clearly, this is going to be. These are going to be uncomfortable conversations, and you're going to have to. Hey, this is warfare right here. Let's just call it what it is. Verse 18. Go ahead.
Then certain philosophers of the Epicureans and of the Stoics encountered him, and some said, what will this babbler say? Some he seemeth to be a setter forth of strange gods, because he preached unto them Jesus and the resurrection. And they took him.
So these people kind of all over the place. He said Epicureans, philosophers, Stoics. Paul's out there in the worldly, that's a worldly square right there with people just, you talking about philosophers, they all over the place. He's bringing the truth in the midst of that. Hey, you definitely gonna have to ask some questions. You're gonna have to know who you're dealing with and what you're dealing with them for, and where the issues are. So you're gonna have to ask some questions. Verse 20, go ahead.
I didn't do 19.
19, go ahead.
And they took him and brought him unto Areopagus, saying, may we know what this new doctrine whereof thou speakest is. For thou bringest certain strange things to our ears. We would know, therefore, what these things mean. For all the Athenians and strangers which were there spent their time in nothing else, but either to tell or to hear some new thing. Then Paul stood in
and people doing that to this day. They don't want to hear nothing but some new stuff.
New stuff, yeah.
We heard that before. We want you to give us some new stuff. People call themselves in the truth, still, looking for this though. Verse 22, go ahead.
Then Paul stood in the midst of Mars Hill and said, Ye men of Athens, I perceive that in all things ye are too superstitious. For as I passed by and beheld your devotion, I found an altar with this inscription, To the unknown God, whom therefore ye ignorantly worship. Him I declare unto you.
Okay, that's good. So now let's go to
There is a place in England, I don't remember what it's called, where they do exactly that. Like what they call that. In Athens, you read about that? In England, there is a place, a park, where you go.
yeah, a lot of places.
What do
Yeah.
people do? They just go there and they have all kind of.
That's how brother Bowie came up doing that.
Washington
He used
Park.
to go to a park,
Yeah.
with a bunch of Israelites, and I believe it was some black Muslims there. That's how he said he got his stuff. He used to go out there and get in battle. It's hard to imagine it now because he's an elder and he's pretty established. But when he was a young man, he used to be out there in the park getting busy too.
There's still going on.
Yeah.
It's not something that is died out. Same thing happening today.
Yeah. Hey, that just comes with the territory. That comes with the territory. Let's go to. I think that's good. So hopefully that answers that question. You just want to. But you want to. This is not. I need more information on this question. Let's go to Ephesians 6. Because this is not, when you engage somebody, you got to understand this is highly spiritual. And it's not, you want to be girded up, I guess is what I'm really trying to say. Like, you don't want to just matter-of-factly or by happenstance engage people that are dealing with spirits. You know what I'm saying? Like, because mission A number one is for us to work out our own salvation. That's mission A number one. Right? That's what we are supposed to do. So that's what we're supposed to be focused on. Jumping in where somebody else is doing something, hey, the Lord got people doing that, but that may not be for everybody. It may not be for every circumstance. You definitely want to be girded up, is what I'm trying to say. Ephesians 6, verse 11. Go ahead.
Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places.
So again, that's what we're dealing with here. Right? So, hey, the Lord has to guide our steps with what we're doing. We don't want to just jump off and do our own thing and be throwing ourselves in situations that the Lord don't want us in. He got to guide us in all of this. Because we got to put on the armor of God to be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. So I guess I'm just saying we have to keep that in mind. Verse 13.
Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. And take the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God.
Okay, so now he said, stand Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand in the evil day, and having done all to stand against the wiles of the devil. Now let's go look at some people who didn't have on the whole armor of God. Let's go to Acts chapter 19. Acts chapter 19, verse 13. Acts chapter 19 and 13. Okay, when you get there, go ahead.
Then certain of the vagabond Jews, exorcists, took upon them to call over them which had evil spirits the name of the Lord Jesus, saying, We adjure you by Jesus whom Paul preaches. And there were 7 sons of one Sceva, a Jew, and chief of the priests, and which did so. And the evil spirit answered and said, Jesus I